Legend of Total War here, and today we're doing another top 5 Total War video. This time covering the top 5 Total War AIs, specifically on the battle maps. Now, it's no secret that the AI in Total War games do leave a lot to be desired, but some Total War games have better AI than others. Now, what's mainly going to be taken into account in this is not how difficult it is to beat the AI, but the decisions that the AI make, how competent they are at managing their armies, tactically speaking, given the tools that they have to work with. So for example, an AI that's given, a ton of cheats, but makes poor decisions, but still is quite difficult to beat, is not going to be weighted as highly as an AI that's not given as many cheats, but handles themselves better in terms of the decisions that they make. So with that being said, let's jump in now to number 5. Coming in at number 5 is the AI for Napoleon Total War. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is amazing AI, but of the Total War games, I would say it's probably the 5th best. It's a marked improvement on Empire Total War, which is definitely one of the worst AIs. Now, it's still prone to making some really dumb decisions, especially on the marching side of things. They tend to clump up their units a lot, allowing your artillery to really rip them to shreds. They do have a tendency of leaving their artillery poorly defended, which are some of the most important units you'll have on the battlefield, and they will derp out a little bit before firing. But it's nothing compared to what the AI was like with Empire Total War. So by no means, is it getting the best AI slot, because like I said, this is number 5. But it's not perfect, it's not terrible. They do get some AI cheats, but it's not that much. And given the tools that they have to work with, I would say that they are, moderately competent. It's hard to sit here and praise the AI in any Total War games, but I would solidly say that the AI in Napoleon Total War deserves the number 5 slot. It's decent. You'll beat it 99% of the time on even battlefields. They need to have a significant advantage in order to get a win over you, but that's pretty much the case in every Total War game. So that's why it's getting the number 5 slot. Anyway, let's move on now to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is the AI for Medieval II Total War. Now, this is probably something that's going to confuse a lot of people, because Medieval II is arguably the easiest Total War game to beat. Now, there's a reason for that. It's not actually because the AI is brain dead stupid, compared to other Total War games. There's 2 main reasons why the AI in just Medieval II is so easy to beat. First thing is that the AI gets the least amount of cheats on the battlefield than any other Total War game. The fighting them on the battlefield, it's barely even noticeable, the attack, defense, and morale buffs that the AI get in this game compared to other Total War games. And the other thing is that the tools that the player has to work with, the tactics that are at your disposal, are more potent and more impactful in Medieval II than any other Total War game. Flanking an enemy army in Medieval II game could cause a complete mass rout. Flanking in Rome 2, you might kill like 10 men. You're gonna have to keep charging again and again and again just to break that one unit. There's a difference between stat-based Total War games and tactics-based Total War games, and this is probably the most tactics-based Total War game to date, which is why it's so damn easy. Tactics is something that the AI really struggles with in every Total War game, which is why this video is based on the decisions that it makes. Now, here's the thing about Medieval II AI, is that in most cases, it actually makes decent decisions. Not amazing, genius decisions, because no Total War game makes amazing genius decisions.
The battle is very much in our favor.
The AI in Medieval II...
and steadfast. Victory will be ours.
The AI in Medieval II, it will camp on hills in defensive battles. In defensive sieges, they will reposition their units on the wall or even take them off entirely, whereas in other Total War games, they don't. They will try to flank as best they can. They will try to utilize their missile cavalry units. They'll try to flank with them. They'll use the Cantabrian Circle. They'll use loose formation. They'll generally speaking do relatively competent decisions. You know, sometimes it'll derp out, but in every Total War game, the AI will derp out in some situations. And that's the main reason why Medieval 2 is getting the number 4 slot. As I really want to stress, it is not the smartest AI, but it really is decent, at least in terms of the decisions that it makes. If you were to give it the bonuses that you see in later Total War games, you'll see it becoming a lot more difficult. This is why in certain mods where morale has been buffed, the AI in those particular Medieval 2 mods is a lot more difficult than, say, vanilla. As I said before, the main reason why it breaks so easily is just the tools at your disposal and the lack of bonuses to help them cope with the with just sheer human intelligence. Anyway, with that being said, let's jump in now to number 3. Coming in at number 3 is the AI for Total War Attila. So, the campaign AI for Total War Attila is goddamn awful, but the battle AI is actually pretty damn decent. And like I said, the third best AI in my opinion. Now, part of the reason for that is that in Total War Attila, a more aggressive style of AI was really introduced, where the AI really tries to get into combat with you as soon as possible. So what it does by doing this, by really pushing on you immediately into any battle, is allows its advantages to be maximized while reducing your advantages, because the player can make smarter decisions than the AI, but the AI can make faster decisions than the player. And utilizing this by putting pressure on the player, because usually a player would need to at least spend a couple of seconds thinking about where the best spot to attack would be, the AI is just using actions per minute to just swarm the player. And this is something that we've seen introduced even further into even later Total War games, where it's just rush, 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 rush. And even though technically speaking it's not the smartest decision to make, for the AI's tools at their disposal, it actually works reasonably well. In Total War Attila, it's very much possible to lose a battle against the AI on even terms. Not always, but it does happen. Of course, this is also a tactics-based game, so you can very easily win against them if the odds are massively against you. It depends on the scenario. For example, when the AI is assaulting a settlement, you don't really need to have a huge amount of force in order to repel them, because they do just think about rushing at you, and they don't necessarily think about attacking it patiently in the best possible way. They sometimes leave their general undefended, and killing the general in Total War Attila has one of the highest impacts in any other Total War game. If you kill the general, any unit that breaks shatters, and it provides such a massive impact penalty that it's a lot easier to break them once they have killed the enemy general. They're not particularly good at trying to kill your general, but like I said, what the AI does in Total War Attila is really just tries to put as much pressure on the player as possible so that they can't make the best decisions that they can, which is one of the reasons why Total War Attila's battles are so damn quick. So that's why it gets the number 3 slot. It's a pretty decent AI. It's not the smartest, but it's pretty decent. Let's move on now to number 2. Coming in at number 2 is the AI for Total War Warhammer. Now, this is a game where the AI has a lot of things that it needs to manage. There's a lot of different things that the player can do to try to mindfuck the AI. And you guys have seen me do a lot of things, and in many ways the AI doesn't know what to do. The AI does have a lot of failings in this game, and I'll mention some of them. But it does also have a lot of tools it has to work with. Total War Warhammer has more unit types than any other Total War game. And in Total War Warhammer, in terms of tactically speaking, the AI really does focus on flanking, and it does, to a reasonably good extent, do a good job. I've certainly seen the AI really push in my noob boxes in with their cavalry and really, get at my artillery, which almost all of my armies do focus on because it's so powerful in this game. But some of its big failings are, of course, siege defense AI, where it's really a lack of AI. It just sits there and just allows its army to dissolve to your archer, artillery, or magic. It doesn't have good threat detection when it comes down to vortex spells. They do try to get out of the way sometimes, especially in field battles, but in siege battles, not so much. The siege battles in Total War Warhammer are terrible, to say the least. Probably some of the worst siege battles in Total War history. But on the field battle, the AI is pretty damn competent. It does have a lot of bonuses, but tactically speaking, given the tools that it has to work with, it does do a really good job and is, one of the most enjoyable Total War AIs to at least battle against. Just because it does have very few instances in which it derps out. And those instances in which it does derp out, it's really just, cheese. Like, for example, when you go up against a high elf army and you just waste all of its ammunition by flying one flyer around them. That's not something that a lot of people are going to do, and I think that's a situation that Creative Assembly didn't really count on. But in most situations, the AI does do a good job. It does build upon the AI decisions from Total War Attila, where it does focus on rushing, so that it can prevent the player from making the best decisions they possibly can. It does very much revolve around disrupting the enemy, as opposed to killing them. And that's why it gets the number 2 slot. Anyway, let's now move on to the best AI in a Total War game. Coming in at number 1 is the AI for Total War Shogun II, which I don't think comes as too much of a surprise to people. Shogun II has always been considered one of the most challenging Total War games. Now, I think a large part of that is because the AI has less tools at its disposal than, giving it a contrast with, say, Medieval II. Shogun II is a very simplistic Total War game. There's only really one culture, and there's not really that many unit types. There's not really that much variety when it comes down to the battle maps. It's all on Japan, and the battle maps are, all pretty similar. Sieges are more or less all the same. It just goes to different sizes. The castles do look all pretty similar. So there's not really a whole lot of scenarios that were needed to program into the AI, and therefore those few scenarios that it does have to deal with, it has had a lot more time to sort of master those situations. So the AI in Shogun II is by no means, godlike or able to compete with, a human that's played, even 10 hours of a Total War game. It's no Total War game has AI that's that particularly good. But if any Total War AI had any chance of beating the player on an even ground, it is the Shogun II AI, for the reasons that I mentioned above. There's very few scenarios in which the AI derps out, and there's a lot of scenarios in which the AI does perform the best out of any Total War games. It probably performs the best in field battles compared to any other Total War game. They really hold their line particularly well. They flank when they need to flank. They protect their general sometimes. No Total War game really puts that much priority in defending their generals, and they do put a lot of pressure on the player. I think out of all the Total War games, I've been more concerned about losing on even field battles against Shogun II AI than any other Total War game that I've played to date. And that is why I think that this game, deservedly so, gets the number 1 slot for the best AI in a Total War game. Which, of course, still leaves a lot to be desired, but this is the benchmark for which all Total War games, I think, should at least try to aspire to be in terms of challenging. Anyway, that's the end of this particular list. Let me know what you think. What games do you think deserve to be on this list? Or do you just agree with my list? Anyway, let me know what top 5 video you want me to do next. And I'll see you next time, fuckers.